take shelter. That is the message to hundreds of thousands of southeast Queenslanders tonight as Cyclone Alfred inches closer to the coast. The system is on track to hit the Bay Islands after midnight before moving over Brisbane tomorrow morning. Some communities in the disaster zone are already feeling its force, with the Gold Coast lashed by pounding seas, dangerous wind gusts and heavy rain. In northern New South Wales, almost 20,000 people are under evacuation orders. Authorities are especially concerned about widespread flooding in the days to come. Mark Willisey begins our coverage.
It's a threat not seen here in a generation. Ferocious winds ripping massive trees from their roots on the Gold Coast. The consequences devastating, with homes crushed by falling branches. Tens of thousands are without power and fearing what's still to come.
Not looking forward to tonight because we've got windows all around.
Scott Maxwell was lucky to escape uninjured when a huge tree fell on his Currumbin home.
I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning with a loud thud and the whole house shook.
The savage conditions taking even experienced hands off guard.
I'm used to cyclones. I come from Magnetic Island, North Queensland, so Category 5. I wasn't worried about Category 2. I should have been.
The Gold Coast's famous beaches unrecognisable. Massive swells are gouging chunks out of the coastline, leaving a jagged wall of sand with a breathtaking drop.
We're all quiet. I think we're all in awe of what's happening right now.
Unbelievable what nature can do.
Structures now left exposed to the elements, and some hinterland roads are starting to go under. This lot will need a shower before they bunker down, potentially for a while.
It's possible that we're going to ask people to shelter for 24 to 36 hours.
One of the nation's most built-up regions is at the mercy of Tropical Cyclone Alfred. The storm's slow progress allowing for final walks and preparations in Brisbane this morning. After an agonising wait, most just want to see the back of it.
But now we're breathing deeply because the pause just adds a little bit more pressure.
We've both not been through anything like this before.
The power is probably the main concern.
City life has ground to a halt. The streets are mostly empty.
Humans rally in times of crisis and people really have.
Potential projectiles have been corralled. Families are ready.
It's like you're waiting for a meal to come to the table and you're just sitting there waiting.
The Cyclone Alfred moves across the Moreton Bay Islands overnight. It's expected to weaken from a Category 2 to a Category 1 system before crossing the mainland tomorrow morning.
This will mean that destructive winds are unlikely for Brisbane itself, but damaging wind gusts to 120 kilometres per hour are expected.
While Alfred's slow pace has given southeast Queensland time to prepare, it comes with a sting in the tail. Authorities say it could take the tropical cyclone anywhere between 6 to 9 hours to cross the coast. In the process, it could dump life-threatening and dangerous flooding rains on low-lying areas. Rainfall totals for the event could reach 800 millimetres in some areas.
In this case, it is really large and slow moving, and that does represent the prospect of some significant rainfall.
Potentially exceed the levels we saw in the 2022 flood. And so if that is not a reason to take this seriously, I don't know what is.
Authorities expect to release water from the region's main dams in the coming days. Islands just off the coast are already being pounded. Kangaroos are fleeing. Hatchlings are off to a turbulent start.
But it's coming now, you can feel it's in the air.
It'll be a sleepless night for many, with more to come as the expected flood disaster unfolds. Mark Willisey, ABC News, Brisbane.
Well, the wind is starting to pick up here a little bit in Brisbane right now, but certainly among the first places to feel the force of Cyclone Alfred is those Bay Islands. And the local Mayor, Joss Mitchell, is on the line to us now. Mayor, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. What are conditions like for you at the moment?
So wind is definitely picking up now. I've just been out sandbagging at my back door. So the wind it's time to get inside.
Yeah,
the Bay Islands, though, the Bay.
Warning.
Sorry.
I was just saying there is a take shelter warning for residents right now.
There's a take shelter warning for the islands and also for our mainland area as well. So it's a blanket take shelter warning across our LGA right now. It's time for people to get inside, take shelter as we now move through the next phase of the cyclone.
I understand you've already got thousands of people without power. Is that because power lines have been knocked down?
That's correct. Yeah, we've got about 5,000 residents, 4,500 to 5,000 residents without power currently, mostly across our islands, our island communities. So we've got also a couple, we're concerned about telecommunications as well for a couple of islands too.
And Mayor, what other kinds of damage have you seen so far?
So the winds have actually brought down a lot of trees and there's a lot of leaf litter and branches around. We're still to get reports of buildings and things like that, but at the moment it's mostly tree upheaval or branches and things like that. And also we're seeing some impact to our coastline.
And so what does, tonight and the next couple of days look like for your community?
So we expect Alfred to make landfall around from the islands, from North Stradbroke Island, around 4 to 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then Cleveland we're looking at 10 a.m. for our mainland. And so it's going to be a very probably intense period over the next 24 hours as we move through this next phase of the cyclone actually making contact and landfall. We can expect really strong winds, up to 120 kilometres an hour or over. It's still a Category 2 cyclone, and we can expect increased activity across our coastline in terms of storm surge. So fortunately, that's been predicted to be a little lower than we first anticipated, so that's some good news.
Yeah, let's hope so. Mayor Joss Mitchell from the Redland City Council, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, southeast Queensland's iconic beaches are on the brink. As Cyan Valence reports, coastal erosion is getting worse.
Cyclone Alfred has rendered one of Australia's most famous tourism hotspots unrecognisable. This is surfers' paradise today. Instead of beach, there is a sharp drop. The erosion here is extensive, hours before the cyclone's due to make landfall. And we've been hearing warnings for days about damaging and abnormally high tides. Well, this is it. The water is churning. It's not blue, it's white, and it's only going to intensify, possibly until Sunday. This area was packed with people yesterday who wanted to see the initial impact of Alfred for themselves. Today, Surfers Paradise is almost like a ghost town. There are a few people who've come down to have a look.
It's pretty nasty, I feel. I mean, have a look at the erosion. It's going to take some time to tidy this mess up.
It's already eroded up to the actual pathway, and there's bits of the actual staircase been knocked out.
But many are avoiding the beach. If they do go onto the sand, it is a $16,000 fine. And you can see why, because just a couple of metres from this concrete infrastructure, the sand drops right off. And you can see even down there, there's more danger that that's going to fall imminently with the relentless rain and this wind expected to get up to 155 kilometres an hour over the coming hours and days. And the rain has been coming down in sheets, expecting 800 millimetres here on the Gold Coast over coming days. Residents and tourists who are staying in the famous high-rises along the Gold Coast have told us the wind already sounds like a freight train. Well, as Cyclone Alfred gets closer, it will only intensify.
Cyan Valence reporting there. Well, let's check in with our reporter Mackenzie Colohan, who's at Broadbeach. Mackenzie, Gold Coasters have been told to take shelter.
They have, Jess, and the wind and rain have really started to pick up here again in the last couple of hours, but the day on the Gold Coast actually wasn't too bad. There were some long periods without much wind and rain at all, but it was last night and in the early hours of this morning that those really intense bursts came through, and that is what has caused the majority of the damage that you've seen. The beaches have taken an absolute battering. That is really sad to see because it's going to take council a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of time for them to recover. Narrow Neck and Main Beach and the northern beaches in particular, there's about 6 metres of erosion, and council's brand new sand back pass system that's supposed to pump sand from the spit back down to Surfers Paradise to replenish that particular section of coast has been completely exposed, the pipe, and in some sections washed away. We've seen trees come down on power lines and cut homes in half. Thankfully, at this stage, no major injuries to speak of, but the major challenge so far, without a doubt, has been the power outages. Last night, 40,000 homes lost power on the Gold Coast. I was one of them, and when I heard that Energex wasn't going to be sending repair crews out until after the storm had passed, I had to come back to the ABC Hotel here in Broadbeach with my towel between my legs. I'm one of the lucky ones though. I don't think many people expected that the power would go out so long before the storm actually hit, and there are plenty of families now facing a couple of days stuck in home in the dark. In those suburbs without power, the 5G network is taking a hammering. The data isn't really working, and so it's very difficult for people to contact friends and family and to find out what's going on. There have been a lot of people out and about, Jess, checking out the beaches in this storm over the last couple of days. The time for that is over. At this stage, the advice is for everyone to stay inside, stay dry and stay safe.
Mackenzie, thank you. Yeah, really challenging conditions. Take care. Well, Jenny Woodward is here now. And Jenny, just how strong have the winds been so far?
Well, Jess, they're really building at the moment, and indeed they're not at their full strength at the moment because the cyclone is sitting about 100 k's offshore, and that means that those winds are quite parallel to the coast. But as it gets closer, we're going to see those winds intensify. And certainly, you've already heard, we've had big winds on the Gold Coast overnight. They got up to 100 kilometres an hour at Coolangatta. We saw 120 at Byron Bay, just south of the border, and that's for the third day in a row. Wave heights are huge, nearly 17 metres near North Stradbroke Island, and we've also had quite a lot of rain, 200 millimetres already recorded on the Gold Coast hinterland. So tonight the cyclone is sitting about 100 k's offshore and it's moving very slowly, and we've got the latest tracking is telling us that it could slow and hover in Moreton Bay before making landfall on the mainland just north of Brisbane from about mid-morning, now possibly near Redcliffe or Caboolture. Destructive gusts are possible just south of the eye on the coastal fringe, along with the highest threat of erosion when the high tide occurs at about 4 a.m. Now the wind and wave threat will gradually ease after that landfall. However, for most regions, the worst impacts will arrive with the deluge of rain, hundreds of millimetres on Saturday alone, focused on Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Northern Rivers. And the latest modelling now has torrential falls persisting into Sunday and also into the southeast interior. Another 300 millimetres possible near the border, and ultimately that heavy rain could extend as far south as Sydney early next week. There's a severe weather warning for southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, and Jess, we've also had some storms over northern parts of the state, so I'll be back with all the weather details later.
Thank you, Jenny. Well, it's feared Cyclone Alfred has claimed its first victim in New South Wales. The driver of a car swept off a bridge, clung to a tree, desperately communicating with rescuers before being swept into floodwaters.
Parts of northern New South Wales vanishing underwater, but this is just a small taste of what's expected to come. Cyclone Alfred is now breathing down people's necks.
At the moment we have over 29,000 dwellings under evacuation order, 19,000 people involved in that.
In the Northern Rivers region, Lismore residents were among the first urged to flee. And at local evacuation centres, bed numbers are multiplying.
168 people stayed here overnight, but we're expecting more people to come during the day, and the estimated numbers are possibly over 500.
It is a little bit scary, and we've got some really strong high winds.
Not too bad. A bit harder with these ones because she's got autism and stuff, so harder for her to settle.
Yesterday afternoon, thousands of people were asked to leave their home. The message that we're reporting today is that that has happened.
Things didn't go as smoothly in the Byron Shire.
The evacuation centres, we've not been delivered just the basic things that are required for people to have food, tea and coffee, even an evacuation sign so people know where to go.
But outside, the danger is clear. This tree was uprooted outside a pub in Byron Bay, as gale force winds also brought down power lines.
This morning we had 44,500 customers without supply. Tweed Heads, Moorlambar, Ewingsdale, Byron Bay were the hardest hit.
Thousands of State Emergency Service volunteers have been getting ready for Alfred's arrival. And today, confirmation further reinforcements have arrived.
We have 178 ADF people already here with 30 high clearance vehicles. So we have the capacity now to get through some of that higher floodwater.
The danger is torrential rain in the hours before the cyclone makes landfall will bring flash flooding and cause rivers to rise. At this stage, the Wilsons River is expected to top the levee at 11 metres sometime tomorrow, but it's not known how high it could go. In 2022, the floodwaters here in Lismore reached nearly 14.5 metres. Authorities are pleading with the public to not risk driving through flooded roads.
Our sincere hope is that the community gets through this without any loss of life and that we can, when this is all over, focus on the rebuild.
Well, as families brace for Cyclone Alfred to make landfall, medical groups are urging people to keep an eye out for their mental health. Parents in particular are being urged to watch out for signs of anxiety or distress in their children.
Daniel Bond's family is shoring up their Brisbane home as Cyclone Alfred looms.
We've been through the 2022 floods, so we know the sort of damage that can come through here.
His preparation extends to providing reassurance to his two children.
The kids have
Pardon?
that anxiousness about what to expect and not having to sort of experienced anything like it before.
As the wait for Cyclone Alfred to make landfall stretches on, mental health groups are warning that natural disasters can bring their own emotional turbulence, especially for children or those still traumatised from past storms and floods.
It's kind of strange that the cyclone's coming because I've never experienced it and just don't know what to expect.
Experts say signs of distress in children to look for are kids withdrawing, avoiding food, fighting or becoming demanding and clingy. Their advice is to stick to routines, warn children that power might go out and trees might fall over to avoid surprises, and be honest but reassuring.
The message to parents is to do your best to manage your own emotions, knowing that your children will be picking up and monitoring what's going on for you.
Queensland Health has developed a special online video book to help kids understand cyclones.
The wind blew harder and harder. Ooh.
Parents of teens are warned older children can be overwhelmed from excess social media exposure to cyclone videos and chats.
That's our damn wall.
Helping families weather the storm inside and out. Alison Branley, ABC News.
In southeast Queensland, there'll be no public transport running tomorrow. Hospital emergency departments are still open, as are some vet clinics, which are expecting to deal with injured wildlife. Fiona Blackwood reports from the Sunshine Coast.
Out and about before bunkering down, Sunshine Coast residents have been making the most of the calm weather while it lasts.
I think everyone's just grateful that it's not hitting us too bad at the moment, and we'll just do what we can when it happens.
It doesn't seem that intimidating, but it could be different tomorrow.
Let's get it over and done with instead of muck around.
The big seas revealed the usually hidden wreck of SS Dickey. And with conditions set to deteriorate, authorities are cracking down on ocean risk-taking after several rescues in recent days.
It may be the case where the conditions are that dangerous that we will not be able to send assistance to their aid.
Boaties could face fines of more than $30,000.
Or for a corporation in excess of $100,000.
Some vulnerable residents, or those with livestock, sought refuge early. The doors of this vet clinic are staying open.
We're going to look at some x-rays for banjo.
With staff expecting to treat strays and injured wildlife during the storm.
But we see reptiles, we see possums, occasional koalas. But that's the first outfit.
Sunshine couple Lavender Bain and Blake Kellner have double the reason to be anxious as they also await the imminent arrival of their first child.
It'll probably be a little cyclone like I was when I was a kid, to be honest, if it wants to come during a cyclone.
With up to 200 millimetres of rain forecast over the next 2 days, residents are warned it's now time to stay inside and off the roads. People on the Sunshine Coast have been watching what's been happening south of here and preparing for what's to come. Many have spent the past few days sandbagging and securing their homes and are now hoping it will be enough to withstand the storm. Fiona Blackwood, ABC News, Sunshine Coast.
While many people are sheltering in their own homes, some don't have a roof over their heads and are relying on emergency accommodation. Ariana Levy spoke to some volunteers in Brisbane who are helping to support those in need.
We're here at Emmanuel City Mission, which is just one of the few safe sanctuaries that have opened up across the city to provide accommodation and safety, particularly those who experience rough sleeping. Now, the organisation's usual business hours are between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day during the week. Since Wednesday, they've opened their doors around the clock, 24/7, to provide assistance to those, particularly in our most vulnerable community. And just to give everyone an idea of what exactly that looks like with running a 24-hour operation, here is the kitchen where effectively 3 hot meals are served each day. Bacon and eggs is on the menu for breakfast. And I'm joined by the lovely cook of the kitchen, Jill. Jill, what's on the menu?
Today we're doing a Thai yellow curry, chicken Thai yellow curry with rice. We're aiming to feed probably 150 people per day. Yesterday we had 141 who had a plated meal here. I think it'll probably get a little bit more, so that's what we're aiming for. Sounds nothing to a lot of other people, but huge for us.
And you have 2 menus, is that correct?
Oh, I do. I've devised a menu with electricity and a menu without electricity. So I've got hopefully all my bases covered.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful effort, Jill. And really, this organisation is run off not only volunteers but also donations. It is so significant, especially as people brace for this storm and its expected arrival.
A Lithuanian rower rescued from monster seas off the Queensland coast has been reunited with his wife. Aramis Merkus arrived back on dry ground in Sydney today and collapsed into his wife's arms. He'd been attempting a 12,000 kilometre trip from San Diego to Brisbane, but sent out a distress signal when he got into trouble. HMAS Choules picked him up on Monday, then battled treacherous 12-metre waves, whipped up by Cyclone Alfred on its journey home. The rower says he feared for his life as his boat repeatedly rolled in the ocean.
Yeah, it's like cat in washing machine. We have a saying in Lithuanian language, Sveikas gyvas, healthy and alive. He is healthy and alive. That's incredible. So thank you very much to Australian Navy.